Hey, it's Marie. Do you want to make a table runner with me? This is for Halloween. Now, the trick is, can we do it in 10 minutes or less? This is the 10-minute table runner. I'll be racing with the clock and making this table scarf slash runner for the first time. I hope that you'll join me in this sew along, and let's see if we can do it. Supplies that you'll need: a half a yard of quilting cotton, 1/3 of a yard of quilting cotton, both 44 inches wide, coordinating thread, batting, which is optional, to cut at 12 by 44 inches, 2 buttons or 2 tassels, again, both optional. Let's get sewing. Okay, so I have my 12-inch by the width of fabric backed with the batting, ready to go. This is the accent fabric of that table scarf or table runner. The backing and the border is this piece of fabric will be a half of a yard of fabric, and that width is about 18 inches. And the length is going to be your width of fabric. In this case, it's 44 inches wide. You can definitely make or piece it to be longer to customize for your table. I've already put a walking foot on my sewing machine, and I have my magnetic guide set at a 1/2 inch seam. Some people may choose to do a 1/4 inch. I'm doing a 1/2 inch because I do want to serge the edges. Cotton tends to fray, and these need to be washed. They get dusty when you put them on display for an extended length of time, and I want them to hold up, especially if I'm giving them as gifts. So I'm gonna do the 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then I'm going to serge the edges, and I'll include that in the time because I'm gonna time myself. So I'm not going to use pins because I already have pins here to make sure that that batting doesn't move. And then I'm just going to put the right sides together and hold it as I sew. So I'm going to set the timer. I have it for 10 minutes, and if I wasn't clear, I am starting with sewing the long sides together first. So let's do side 1, okay? I'm gonna get going on this sewing. Okay, I've got it ready to go, and I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer. 10 minutes, counting down. Okay, so I've completed side 1. I have not taken the pins out yet. I'm going to keep them in just to keep that batting in place. And I paused the time, and I have 8 minutes and 25 seconds left. So I'm going to go ahead, and if you're looking here, you'll see that it looks a little off balanced, but that's intentional. So you're just going to do the same thing, match the edges, raw edges together, right sides together. And I will most likely start on this end here with my batting facing down. I still have my walking foot, and I'm going to go ahead and line those up and stitch together. Okay, so I've stopped the clock with 7 minutes and 38 seconds remaining, and this is what it looks like with both of those long sides sewn together. You may or may not have batting, but here's the side that has behind it the accent fabric, and then you'll see that excess fabric on the sides, which is your backing and border. So before I turn this tube right side out, I am going to serge these edges just so it'll press nicer, it'll lay nicer, and hopefully it'll extend the longevity of this beautiful home decor scarf slash table runner. And I will time myself because I think that's fair. So I'm going to time myself once I start serging this fabric. It's nerve-wracking. I don't like sewing really, really fast, but I still have 6 minutes and 53 seconds left. Okay, nice finished edges. Mama would be proud. Front and back, both sides. Okay. Next step is to turn this tube right side out. And I'm assuming I should include that in the time. So ready, set, go. Turn it inside out, quickly, quickly, quickly. And next, you get to iron. Oh my gosh. This is ridiculous, racing against the clock. When you're sewing, you shouldn't be doing that, honestly. You really shouldn't. All right, so it's inside out. I'm gonna stop the clock. Paused. 5 minutes, 47 seconds. Does that mean I should time myself ironing too? Because that's the next step. You can see the formation of those borders. Isn't this cute? This is gonna be for a cat-loving couple. So yeah, it's cute and they're gonna love it. So there we go. You can see the formation of the borders. And luckily this fabric, the pumpkins go upside down, right side up. So you have to pay attention to, well, I guess it just depends on what you're using. They go in both directions, so we're good. There you go. Okay, so I'm gonna iron, and I don't know if I should include that in the time process. What do you think? I gotta think about that because I like to take my time ironing too. All right, I'm not gonna time myself ironing. I'm gonna go iron this right back. Okay, so I ironed it and I'm glad that I didn't time myself because you really kind of have to manipulate the fabric a little bit so that the borders are even in width. So you kind of have to play a little bit as you're pressing, making sure that you're sewing, or excuse me, pressing evenly. So it looks like that. And then as you can see, there's some unevenness on the edges, which is normal, especially if you're using batting. But you can even see here, there's some uneven edges. So the next thing you want to do is trim that, trim those edges, and I will time myself. So get a good cutting mat, a good rotary cutter, a nice edge ruler. Okay, both edges are neatly trimmed and they look like this. Take the back side and fold it in half. So the back sides are touching and they're right sides together. The outside with the accent fabric you can see. Match those edges. You can pin if you feel more comfortable in doing so. So you don't have to hold on to those. And take a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to do a 1/2 inch because again, I'm going to serge those edges, but you certainly could do a 1/4 inch, so a 4th inch seam. So I'm going to straighten that out a little bit and sew both ends. And of course, I'll start the timer. I promise. Being honest here. Let me just check. Yeah, we're with 5 minutes and 17 seconds to spare. All right, so sewing machine and we're off. This is really kind of fun. And you can definitely add lots of things to this. I think the quilting would be incredible. I really have to practice quilting because I just think that that would make it so special. But for now, for purposes of timing this and doing this for the first time, I'm just going to stick with the basics. So I've got it set up, again, 1/2 inch seam. I'm going to do a back tacking on this and then begin to sew. I've got my setting on heavy woven. Okay, timer is set. With a walking foot, you're really not supposed to go charging, but you have to kind of be careful and stitch a little bit slower than you would. Okay, the short end is finished on one side. I'm going to pause that timer and just look at it. It looks good. Everything looks neat. Trim those threads. And really quickly, I'll just go ahead and show you. Take out those pins. I will finish that. But this is the fun part. It's just flipping it. I would press it next. Use a tool if you need to get that point crisp and nice looking. And there are the beginnings of the end of your table scarf. Isn't that adorable? I cannot believe how simple this is. Now, if you wanted to sew a button, which I'm planning to do, oh bummer, I don't like the way those pumpkins look, a little bit off. I mean, that's tricky when you have a busy print like this to perfectly match something like that. But what I could do maybe is cover it with a larger button. So I might not have one in my stash that's big enough, but that's certainly something that you can think about if that bothers you, and it kind of is bothering me a little bit there. Then the next step is, I don't want the button to show in the back. I want that to be nice and clean. So I would need to adhere a button while it's still open, and then you can top stitch across this area to make it even more finished. It's coming along. Look at that. What do you know? Okay, so definitely in looking through my button stash, I found buttons that are large enough to cover what's kind of bothering me, those mismatched pumpkins, oh, cute as they are. So I'm going to strategically place it here, but leaving space for top stitching. So I don't want it too close to the edge because then I won't be able to top stitch this, and I do plan on doing that. So I decided to use some really cool orange thread, and I've got my needle threaded, and I'm actually going to include the sewing of the buttons I'll include that in the timing process, because why not? I still have on the clock, it's getting kind of late here, but let me check, 4 minutes. So I'm going to start the clock and sew at my normal pace because this is a gift. I want it to be pretty and nice and professional. So yeah, I'm going to do my best to make this in 10 minutes, and here we go. Okay, the buttons are now on both ends, and it's getting late. My family has ditched me. They're all in bed and I'm getting tired, but this is a fun project. I've got 1 minute and 7 seconds left on the clock, and all I have left is the top stitching across here. I've changed out my threads. I've decided to go with that fun orange thread for the top. But I want the back to have black thread. So I've changed out the bobbin thread to black, and the top thread is that pumpkin-y orange color, and I'm going to top stitch. Now I want to do a neat job, so I'm not going to hurry. I'm probably not going to beat the clock, but that wasn't the goal anyway, right? It's just really to see if this is in fact a really quick sew, and it definitely is. So I'm going to finish this up and then make a cup of hot tea and curl up in a blanket. So there we go. In the end, I did some light quilting, as you can see in the pictures. I ended up making this minus the quilting in 10 minutes 26 seconds. That also didn't include the initial cutting, but it was super fun to make. It's super festive. I hope you sewed along with me, and if you didn't, please try to make this. It's going to be a big hit for your Halloween table. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time in the sewing and/or craft room. Bye.